Well, to start off this week, we got a couple season in reviews, including Joey Loperfido and Brendon Little.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, down on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. As always, I'm Braden Nuwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Nuwasco, Carter First 2, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you are new here on YouTube, make sure you drop a subscription. If you're listening anywhere else on any other platform, make sure you go and subscribe anyway to the YouTube. It'll keep you up to date. It'll give you lives, shorts, the regular videos. Everything you need will be all on YouTube, sort of as our hub. But in saying that, it's available anywhere. So there you go. And then we got the Discord, Locked On Blue Jays Discord. If you guys want to check that out, we are welcome to. Link is in the description. And then also Movember. We're still doing Movember. Still hot in the middle of it. We appreciate it. We've gotten some great donations, but we appreciate everything you guys can give. Go click that link in the description. It's for a good cause. Make sure you do it. We would really appreciate it. In saying that, a lot to get into today. We're going to do Joey Loperfido's season in review, Brendon Little's season in review. We're going to talk some Blue Jays attendance. But before we get into all of that, Carter, I mean, there was some news that came out on the Soto stuff. I mean, it's nothing crazy. It's sort of what we expected. The Blue Jays and the Red Sox have both now met with Juan Soto, and he was impressed by both. But I think at the end of the day, it looked like he was more impressed with the Red Sox. The only question is, or his big question to the Red Sox was, where do you how's the compete level going to be, and what are you going to do to compete? So I think that question wasn't overly as much asked of the Blue Jays. Like, that wasn't in question with the Blue Jays. I think they knew what they were wanting to do. But Carter, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's weird for the Red Sox. You don't want to sign Mookie Betts, but Juan Soto comes around and you're in on him. With these, I'm not taking too much away from it. It's just leverage for Juan Soto. He's not going to say it went bad, because then that just takes teams out of the race. You lose that leverage. Kind of a nothing burger. Don't really want to get into it too much right now, because there's going to be more news coming out over the week. We're trying to do a Juan Soto update episode every single week, but we figured for you guys here, just if we had any big news coming out, we wanted to keep you guys updated with the latest Juan Soto info. But I guess with that, let's move right into it. We're going to start with Joey Loperfido as our number 24 player on the Toronto Blue Jays for the upcoming season. This is all based off of expectations, just as a reminder. Joey Loperfido coming in the Yusei Kikuchi trade at the trade deadline. We've said it multiple times. Probably the best trade deadline acquisition, honestly, in the league for this trade deadline. You get Joey Loperfido, you get Will Wagner, and then we just did our Jake Bloss episode. We went into how confident we are in him. Just going over just some basic stuff about Loperfido. He's 25 years old, 6'3", 220 pounds. Coming from the Astros, obviously, a limited amount of games, kind of a lot of these prospects. Joey Loperfido's only played 81 games. Braden, you got any stats or anything you want to start off with?
Yeah, I mean, we might as well go over what he did in 2024 in sort of totality. So over 81 games, he had 262 plate appearances, 243 at-bats, 4 home runs, 25 RBIs, batting average 214, a base 264, slugging 350, OPS of 614. Joey Loperfido is, I think he was the addition piece here, right? When you look back at the trade, you understand the Will Wagner piece. You really understand the Jake Bloss piece. We thought that would have been above and beyond enough. But then to get Loperfido as well, a more ready MLB talent. Again, nothing overly proven, but he's made his mark. He's probably an MLB player at this point. He probably won't spend a ton of time in the minors anymore. So that this is where he will be most likely. The question is now, with the Jays making moves and everything in that sort, where does he fit in, right? Because you've seen he's probably going to have to, like Carter said, slot in for Daulton Varsho, at least with the injury. That's probably going to be a guy to keep your eye on in that position, or in that role anyway, if George Springer moves over and he moves over to the right, whatever the case may be. Joey Loperfido does bring a lot to the table, and I think he's decent enough defending. He has a very I'll just go over it here. His arm value is in the 85th percentile. His arm strength isn't that great. It's only 47th, and his range is 63. So it's not a bad outfielder to have in substitution for Daulton Varsho when he's not there.
Well, and he's fast. He's very
Quick.
fast as well. So
Very
88th percentile speed. So that is obviously going to help you out with your range and different things like that. Again, you can make up for a little bit of margin of error if your route to the ball isn't as good. With Joey Loperfido, again, with some of these prospects, it's really tough to speculate when you've only played 81 games. When we came over to the Toronto Blue Jays, probably as the number 2 piece in that trade, Will Wagner at that point was the throw-in. Now, obviously, things are looking a lot different. But looking at Loperfido, really struggled, honestly, with the Toronto Blue Jays and was a little bit of a disappointment, you could say, from that trade with all the things we were hearing about him. Like you said, at this point in his career, he's 25 years old. The Toronto Blue Jays would like him on the MLB roster, but if he does kind of what he did at the end of 2024, I don't know if they're going to be able to make a spot for him. And again, it's tough to speculate because there's free agency. We're hoping the Toronto Blue Jays can make a ton of moves. If you make a bunch of moves, you probably don't have to have Joey Loperfido in your center field position, which again, probably benefits the team in the long run. If Joey Loperfido makes the opening day roster, he's not going to be an everyday player. And we said it times with these younger players, you want them to get their innings in. Like you said, average arm strength is not going to hurt you, but it's not necessarily going to help you. Again, this isn't really any statistical value by it, but I like watching his swing. I think Joey Loperfido has one of those pretty swings that you can, if you're looking at technique, things like that, you're trying to show people how to swing the bat. Joey Loperfido is just a nice swing to look at. Again, young guy coming from the minor leagues. Right now, he just needs to just get some at-bats in, get used to the velocity, the break, as the MLB players have in this league. A lot different from AAA. It takes a little bit of time to get your feet underneath you in the MLB.
Totally. And Carter, in saying all of that, because I think Joey Loperfido was supposed to be that MLB ready player that was going to come in and be a piece of this team. Maybe not a complete everyday piece, but a stability piece. Now, in saying that, I don't necessarily know if he's going to enjoy too much being sent down to AAA. And when I'm thinking about this more and more, and I knew the Joey Loperfido episode was coming up, and I gave it some thought, and I hate to say this, but I think that he could be, if moves are made in free agency, Joey Loperfido could be a trade piece further into the season. And just because maybe the Blue Jays haven't seen exactly what they're looking for with them, they're seeing the potential in other guys, other prospects, younger prospects. Not saying that Joey Loperfido is old in any sense of the case, but he's 25. You got a couple young guys, coming up through the pipeline. And I think that with the Blue Jays, how they're looking, what they're looking to do, I could see him possibly being a trade piece going to this year.
I think it kind of depends on how Alan Rodin progresses as well. Another guy from AAA is supposed to make his major league debut at some point throughout the season. When we look at the Toronto Blue Jays prospects, I'd much rather them trade a middle infield piece where we have multiple guys that play shortstop, second base, rather than you looking at the outfield where we have Jonathan Clase, Joey Loperfido, and really Alan Rodin. Other than that, I don't really have too many guys that I'm looking at, especially in the short term. With Loperfido, it's tough to just kind of take the stats at face value. I'm not really reading into that too much. I'm just more so looking at traits, looking at his profile, and just kind of going over some of the stuff. Went 0 for 22 on a slump when he joined the Blue Jays, had an over 50% strikeout rate during that stretch. That was one of those stretches that was a little bit disappointing and discouraging to see. You could tell, obviously, he was not having fun at that point. These MLB players want to be good. They're trying their best to be good. They're not trying to go 0 for 22 and go through these stretches. But right now, Loperfido, from what I saw, and obviously the stats back it up as well, the biggest struggle in his game right now is hitting the breaking pitch. He's hitting 130 against it with a whiff percentage of 47.6. It's just with these younger guys, it's settling into getting your eye back. You can't be swinging at pitches in the dirt, and that's a little bit of Joey Loperfido's problem. He's getting a little bit too eager, maybe thinking that he needs to do a little bit too much, just trying to make his staple, make his spot on the Toronto Blue Jays. I think he's just got to settle in. Again, it all comes with experience. It'll come with time, just getting the reps in. So with Joey Loperfido, if he just kind of has to mellow in, settle down, and just take it easy. Easier said than done, though, obviously.
Oh, for sure. And I think the one promising thing, and I saw this while watching, but it never really clicked. And when I went back and looked at the stats, Carter, his sweet spot percentage is super high. So the problem is he's not making contact that often. But when he is, he's barreling up the ball or hitting the sweet spot. I don't want to say barreling it up because it's not always the super hardest hit, but you're hitting that center of the bat. You're looking for the spot and he's getting it. But the problem is he's missing way more than he's getting a piece of it. So it's a little bit of give and take here with Joey Loperfido. Again, young guy, a lot of time to develop. He's got that time. It's not the biggest deal. I'm not overly worried about him. But in saying that, I want him to do well. I think he is one of those pieces that the Jays, barring an injury, would be looking to bring him in, like we talked about at the start of the season. We'll have to wait and see. Again, a bunch of free agent stuff coming out. We don't know necessarily where the Jays are going to land on some guys. There might be a piece that's brought in that makes Joey Loperfido just sort of an unnecessary piece. We'll have to wait and see. In saying that, Carter, do you have anything else before we shift into Brendon Little?
I guess just giving them our grades for the season.
That's right.
Again,
Yeah.
it's kind of tough to do these type of guys, the guys that just don't have a lot of MLB service time. Based off expectation, again, the average, I guess, would be a C for me. A little bit disappointed from what Joey Loperfido did. Again, not taking too much away from it because it was in like 240 batting appearances. Again, not really going to complain too much, but I have him at a D+. Looking for a little bit better stuff from Joey Loperfido, whether that is in the MLB or in AAA. Just want to see some progression. Just want to see him get better in the year of 2025.
Yeah, Carter, for me, that's I was right at the D+ as well, just because I think the promise when he was coming here from that trade was he's going to be unbelievable. You guys, not unbelievable, but he's going to be good. And I just don't think we've seen that from him yet. And like you said, limited time. It's hard to make a distinct, this guy plays like this and he's always going to play like this. You can't say that. You got to wait. You got to see. You got to give him time to work through it. And again, I think that D+ isn't as much of a negative because I don't think I'm super down on Loperfido. I think he just needs the time. So don't take too much away from this. Not that he's probably watching this, but don't take too much away from that. It's just the expectation from the trade and then coming in. My expectations were higher than where we ended up. In saying that, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. We got to talk Brendon Little because I think he's going to be part of the situation that everybody's looking at with this Jays bullpen. It is in disaster mode. So we'll wait and see. We'll talk Brendon Little and how he all fits in. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. I always talk about it. FanDuel, one of my favorite apps on my phone. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. I always talk about it. I like to do the live same game parlays where I can just I can see what's going on. I know what who's doing well, and then I like to place my bets on those guys. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, Carter, we talk, I sort of led that into that segment with talking about a little bit about the bullpen because I don't know. I'm not sure where you stand on this right now, but I'm a little bit concerned because we haven't necessarily been hearing a positional need as the bullpen, right? We've heard about starting pitchers. We've heard the field. We've heard second base, third base, but there hasn't been a ton of talk around this Jays bullpen, letting Henny Cabrera go into free agency. I just don't know. I think that there's a lot of question marks here. I'll let you kick things off with Brendon Little.
Yeah, we talked about one lefty in Joey Loperfido. Henny Cabrera was a left-handed pitcher in the bullpen. Now he's gone, obviously, and that leaves Brendon Little as the only lefty on this team. 28 years old, 6'2", 195 pounds. He was drafted in round 1, 27 by the Cubs, right where Nate Pearson was. I think Nate Pearson went one pick after, so that's a pretty interesting one there. Made one appearance before this season. Did not go well at all. Not taking anything away from this, but I like bringing up the stat line. 2/3 innings pitched, 2 hits, 3 earned runs, a bomb, and an ERA in that season in 2022 of 40.50. So that's, going to inflate the numbers a little bit. But again, he's a young guy, doesn't have a lot of career experience. So that does inflate the ERA and things like that. This season, he had a 3.74 ERA over 45.2 innings pitched, 36 strikeouts to 19 walks. Not a great strikeout rate at 7.09, but had an 8.08 hits per nine. Not terrible, not great. Not really taking away too much from the hits per nine. He's just not really striking anyone out, not walking a ton either. But for a lefty in the bullpen, which the Toronto Blue Jays desperately need, it's going to be a piece that they're probably going to have to rely on in 2025 unless somehow Ross Atkins goes out and makes 4 to 5 bullpen moves. don't necessarily see that happening. Had a better ERA post All-Star break, but the walks skyrocketed. He had 13 walks in the last 25.2 innings compared to 6 walks in the 20 innings before that. With Brendon Little, again, it's just nothing really jumping off the page other than one pitch I want to go into, but he's 56th in fastball velo at 40 or 94.5 miles per hour. Other than that, Brendon Little, there's one pitch again I'm going to go into, but I'm going to give it back to you before that. Is there anything that impresses you by Brendon Little, or you just kind of, what's your take on Brendon Little?
Dude, I don't know. I'm very mad on Brendon Little. Like, I don't love what I've seen, but I haven't, like, it's not like when Tim Meza was here and Tim Meza was literally like my enemy. Like, it's not like that. It's just that he's just there. I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about him. I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he's good. He's just there, and that's why he's 23 on our rankings. Yeah. I mean, there's not a ton of active players right now that are playing every day that are below him, and I hate to say this, but he's probably going to be a part of this bullpen, and I don't necessarily know that's a good thing. Carter, the thing that stands out to me, just going over all of his pitches and everything, I remember I was sort of looking into this at the end of last week. The problem with his sinker, okay, is it is middle all the time. And it's just sitting there. And I feel like it's going to get picked up on, and people are going to just start abusing it. And yes, it's a sinker. You want it to be in that low part of the zone, getting guys to roll over. And he has gotten people to roll over. But I think in the same sense, if it's a little bit too high in the zone, the sinker can still get punished. And a little bit, that's a problem for me. The cutter, Carter, I'm a big fan of the cutter. He's putting it in good spots most of the time. I do like that pitch. Just even going onto his baseball savant, it's towards that outside of the zone. He's working it well. And then obviously the knuckle curve as well. I mean, just a strange pitch. I love guys that throw knuckle curve. So that's just my take.
You said you'd hate to see Brendon Little in the bullpen. I don't necessarily I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't want to see him in high leverage necessarily, but if he's at the back end of the bullpen, if he's the 6th, 7th, or 8th guy, you need those lefties to eat innings in specific situations. I don't think Brendon Little was that bad. Again, he's not jumping off the page. He's not going to be our closing pitcher, but if he is one of the pieces in the bullpen, I'm not going to absolutely hate it. Again, would we like to get better? For sure. But the numbers, they aren't bad. I mean, just under a 4 ERA, if you can get that from some of your bullpen arms, it's not going to be the worst thing at the end of the day. When you had guys like Yari Rodriguez, Luis Fries, Zach Pop's still in this bullpen. We'll have to get into that after. But you kind of talked about the sinker, throws that 57% of the time. Did have a little bit of command issues. Again, that kind of goes for me with the lack of MLB experience a little bit. But again, this guy is 28 years old. How long are you going to kind of wait out for this guy? Another good thing about Brendon Little is that he was getting a ton of ground balls. 72.3% ground ball rate, which is unbelievable. Not qualified because, again, doesn't have enough innings, didn't have enough appearances. But from my guess, that would have been around the 98th percentile in the league. So that's going to be very good. And you talk about the knuckle curve. He used to throw a slider when he was with the Chicago Cubs, made a couple changes, decided to go with the knuckle curve, figured it would work better with his pitch mix. And it has been his best pitch by far. At a 43.7 whiff rate and a 158 batting average against. 28 Ks with the knuckle curve compared to 6 with the sinker and 2 with the cutter. It's the definition of a put away pitch. That's Brendon Little's bread and butter when he gets 0-2 up in the count. Even when he needs to save himself, maybe he's down a 3-1 in the count. He still likes to throw that knuckle curve in some situations, keep the hitters guessing. And yeah, just having a left-handed pitcher with that arm angle kind of makes that knuckle curve that much better. But we'll go in the season grade for Brendon Little, and then I just kind of want to talk about what the bullpen is kind of going to look like. So for me, Brendon Little, I'll start this one off. Again, expectation. Oh, you got one more thing?
Yeah, I just got one more thing. Yeah. Just going off that knuckle curve, it's a pitch you don't see a ton anymore. A lot of guys don't throw it. And I'm a little bit biased because I threw a knuckle curve. And so it's always like when you see a guy throwing one, it's like, oh, and then especially coming from the left side, it's got to be super deceptive because there's not a ton of guys that throw it. A lot of the guys that do throw it are right-handed. You see a guy throwing it from the left side, and man, it must just mess with hitters, and it looks like it has. In saying that, Carter, going back to just sort of what I said about Brendon Little in the bullpen, yeah, it's not necessarily that I'd hate it, but I think there has to be a better lefty because in some situations, in higher leverage, you're going to need a good lefty out of the pen, and I just don't think that that's Brendon Little. So where he's used and how he's used, I think is very important because if they're going to try to throw him against lefties in high leverage, I'm a little bit scared about that. And if he's the only lefty there, I'm really worried.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you did really good in his role as like the second left-handed pitching option. You had
Yeah.
Eddie Cabrera as
Okay.
the number one. I don't know if that's necessarily who you'd want as your number one. It's not going to be your number one now, obviously. But there's a hole in the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. We do need another left-handed pitcher. You don't only want to have one, especially when it's Brendon Little. Again, nothing against him. Does have some good stuff. Maybe can improve on it again, but you do want to bolster that bullpen a little bit. Like we talk about a high leverage bullpen signing, getting a high leverage lefty wouldn't be the worst thing for the Toronto Blue Jays. But yeah, we'll go to the lighter grades quickly here, and then again, just kind of the construction of the bullpen right now. For me, Brendon Little, better than expected. I didn't again coming from up from AAA, been optioned up and down a ton this season. And one of those guys you have to rely on with how bad the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen was. So for me, I'm going to give him a B-. I liked what I saw, and hopefully he can build on that for 2025.
Yeah, and for me, I'm sort of in the same ballpark. I didn't have really a ton of expectation for Brendon Little, and as much as I was talking about that, I don't think that he's a great piece that you want with this bullpen. He's not terrible either, and I think he showed some signs of good things to come. It's just right now with where this bullpen is at that we'll get into, that worries me about him being a everyday active piece to this pen. I'm a little bit concerned. But in saying that, he did better, obviously better than expected, because I didn't expect much. I'm going to give him a C+ just because I don't have that strong of opinions on him personally. Again, I sort of went into this saying that he's just fine. He's okay. He's not terrible, but he's not good either. So he's sort of in that weird little middle ground for me I'll give him a C+.
See, but when we look at the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen, unfortunately, he is one of the better arms when you really break it down. So we'll go over it here. Jordan Romano might get non-tendered, one of the non-tender candidates. If his arm is gone, he might be gone as well, but he would be your closer right now. Chad Green, Erik Swanson. I kind of have this as a ranking, but for these two, I could flip-flop. Doesn't really matter for me. Both of them going to be solid. Again, Erik Swanson, for some reason, non-tender option from a lot of articles. Don't understand that one whatsoever. Next up, for me, it's Brendon Little. He'd be your number 4. And again, you're only lefty in the bullpen because the other guys are Dylan Tate, another non-tender option, hasn't really proven himself at the big league level, was a high draft pick, but hasn't really put it all together. And you have Ryan Burr. Again, you see some nice things with the strikeout rate. Again, is he better than Brendon Little? That's debatable. And you got Tommy Nance, and then you got Zach Pop. Right now, it would be how the bullpen shapes up. You don't want to rely on Zach Pop. Again, I used to be high on this guy. I just like the stuff. I don't know how he's bad because his stuff is so good. Just gets rocked. Seems like every single time he goes out there. And Tommy Nance, again, wasn't horrible with his time with the Toronto Blue Jays, but is that a guy you want to rely on down the stretch? Obviously not. So right now, you got Brendon. For me, I got Brendon Little as my number 4 guy. Definitely don't want him as the number 4 guy going into the season. A lot of moves do need to be made, but the more and more we get into this offseason, the more and more I'm thinking that Ross Atkins is not going to address this bullpen, considering what his history, and the only contract he's really paid out for a bullpen arm is the Chad Green contract, picked up that option at $21 million. But what's your take on this bullpen right now?
God, dude. And you know what? That's how I started this segment, was the fact that there hasn't been a push from Ross Atkins to look at this bullpen and allocate money towards this bullpen. It really does not seem like a priority whatsoever, and that worries me big time. I really hope Jordan Romano is okay, because we are going to need him. Yes, Chad Green's great. I love Chad Green. Erik Swanson, everybody knows my stance on Erik Swanson. Love the guy. The non-tender thing, Carter, I don't even know what to say. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm very concerned with this bullpen. And as much as I always say, I'd much rather get the bats. If we're rocking Chad Green, Erik Swanson, Brendon Little, Ryan Burr, Tommy Nance, whoever else, I mean, maybe, I don't know, like, I guess Yariel Rodriguez.
We got Michael Peterson, too, from the Marlins, if that moves the needle for you.
Woo, yay. Yeah, no,
he probably takes over that pop, but
this bullpen sucks, dude. It's terrible. Like, I don't know. They have to make some moves, and maybe that comes in like an in-season trade, like an early season trade. I could definitely see that being a possibility. Maybe they just don't want to go out specifically and waste time targeting a bullpen guy. I don't want to say waste time like that, but almost waste time targeting a bullpen when there's so many bigger pieces at play. And maybe they could figure, okay, we can help this bullpen, but within the season itself. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. There's still a long off season yet. We're getting ahead of ourselves just because there hasn't been a push for moves right now. It doesn't mean that there won't be. So,
yeah, and that's definitely fair. Again, Connor Cook is another guy maybe from within the system that you could use, and then obviously it would be free agents. You need at least one. Blue Jays, when multiple teams historically just don't pay bullpen arms. You see it with some of these guys that can have really good years one season and then terrible years the next season. But just with the lack of the bullpen transactions, even if you're like just taking shots on any sort of move that Ross Sackers will be making, just to know that, yes, the bullpen is on my mind. I want to just restructure it, just take some chances on some guys with some good stuff. But it's going to be worrisome if we were rolling up to around even February, and this is what the bullpen's looking like. Again, you got to assume that there's going to be a couple moves made. It's still very early in free agency, but the lack of talk with the bullpen, not just amongst the front office, is a little bit worrisome. But we do have some more things to go over. A little bit of the attendance at the Toronto Blue Jays Stadium, the Rogers Center. For some reason, couldn't get that right off the top of my head. But yeah, talking about the Rogers Center and how that was affected by the 2024 Toronto Blue Jays performance. We'll get into that after this short break.
Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. You guys all always know. I don't know how many more times I got to talk about Game Time before everybody starts using it, because it is the best place to buy your tickets. That's coming from me. It's the only place I buy mine. And they have this new thing called Game Time Picks. It makes it even easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, and everything else pretty much. They have their all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees. Probably the biggest piece of this for me, because I cannot stand getting to the cart or the checkout and then there being an extra $20, $30 fee. Game Time makes sure that that doesn't happen. The seat views I always talk about, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. They have the lowest price guaranteed. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. I always like that ad. I always like the Game Time at the end. It's so sick. Anyways, it's saying that, shockingly, Carter, I know, big news, spoiler warning, the Toronto Blue Jays attendance numbers were down because the team sucked.
Yeah, who would have thought? Before we do get into that, I just want to bring this up as well. Toronto Blue Jays hired David Bell as their vice president of baseball operations and assistant general manager. Main thing is he's going to be focused on player development and a little bit of the scouting as well. So it's always nice to see another face being brought in, especially when your number one guy right now is Ross Sackers. He needs all the help that he can get at this point. So we'll leave it at that with him. But the Toronto Blue Jays attendance from 2023, the average attendance was 37,307. In 2024, the average attendance went down to 33,101. So that is down just over 4,000. I thought it'd be more, actually, with how bad the team was in 2024. 2024 attendance was actually more on average than the 2022 team, which was another thing that kind of blew my mind. Maybe the renovations go into this a little bit. People wanting to go to the ballpark, wanting to see what is going on with the new Toronto Blue Jays Rogers Center. But who would have thought your team doesn't perform very well in 2024, and majority of people do not want to go to baseball games. We saw this especially down the stretch. A lot of Blue Jays seats were not filled. A lot of Blue Jays tickets were on discounts because you had a bunch of prospects playing, and then you had Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That was one of the only reasons why you should buy a Toronto Blue Jays ticket down that stretch.
Yeah, man. You know what? A part of this for me definitely does go into the renovations, because it is a fun time going to the ballpark. Like they did do a fantastic job. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do while watching the game. It is a great experience. I don't necessarily know how much that affects like the people that live constantly in Toronto and go to the games all the time. I don't know how much that really plays into it. But for people from out of town that aren't from Toronto that come in, it is a great ballpark to as a fan. The problem is the team sucks, so it's not helping it. If the team was good, you have that atmosphere, the place would be absolutely electric, dude. With the amount of lounges and bars and whatever, the standing room now that they have too, like it could be awesome. Imagine that place going in the playoffs. I don't know, man. It would be a complete another level to what we even saw back in 2015-16. So I'm not shocked that it's down. But I think you're right. It was a little shocking it wasn't down further. But I think that it comes down to the renovations.
I think another thing that kind of comes into play here is that when we were in Toronto, we were looking at covers, things like that, different bars. You got $50 covers, $20 covers, $30 covers. You buy a Toronto Blue Jays ticket, it's $10. You get some baseball in the background. You don't necessarily have to pay attention. And it's like a $10 cover to go to the ball game. You get seats in the high 500 levels. It's it's fine. Like you don't necessarily have to watch the game. You could go there and just have some drinks with your buddies, maybe meet some people. Corona Rooftop Lounge is another thing. Like the cool thing about ballparks is that there's just a bunch of activities. We went to Rogers Center. There was shuffleboard. Like obviously I think there was Connect 4 as well. There was the beanbag toss as well. Like there's so many different things you could do at the Rogers Center. So for their, I guess a good part on their sake was that it kind of made it into like a sort of like a festival in a sense, or a club, like you could say. Just a bunch more things to do rather than just watch the Toronto Blue Jays play bad baseball.
Yeah, they had their live bands as well that were playing throughout the game, and yeah, you're right. It was sort of like an outing. Like people would do that instead of maybe going to the bars or the clubs. Or they're like, well, let's buy a $10 Blue Jays ticket, as you said, and then go and drink in the Corona Lounge. It's a blast, and I probably would do it all the time. I mean, I probably would watch more baseball, but in that sense, maybe eventually if it got to that season and I was there every game, maybe I'd just go to the Corona Lounge and listen to some music. I don't know. In saying that, Carter, you got anything else on the attendance before we kick out of here for this Monday?
It was about 11% down than it was in 2023. That's the last stat I'm going to give you guys for this episode. Yeah, like I said, who would have thought the Toronto Blue Jays don't play good baseball? It's a lot worse than 2023, and people don't want to go to watch their games. So hopefully in 2025, we can get that attendance back up. But Ross Atkins is going to have to earn it. You roll out this squad right now, you don't make a lot of moves. Again, we're in on Juan Soto, but we saw how that worked with Shohei Ohtani. We're in Shohei Ohtani, didn't make any moves. Again, in retrospect, did any of the free agents necessarily work out in 2023? Not really. This is a way better free agent class. A lot more moves to be made. A lot more safer options out there. It's just, again, I've said this multiple times on the podcast. It's Ross Atkins' time to put up or shut up. Let's make some moves. Let's get some transactions. Just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. Likes, comments, everything recently has been appreciated. Again, Juan Soto talks probably coming throughout the week as well. We'll be definitely breaking that down throughout the week as we get more information. But last thing, thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.